this is some kind of move. Is it unexpected? No. Because you knew at the end of the year that Josh McDaniels was going to get fired, right? You knew that was going to happen. That things had not gone well enough for the Raiders. They have absolutely no identity. Absolutely none. And I don't know that things were going to get better, and I don't know that it was going to get better any time with any moves you could make, right? Like, I thought coming off of last night, this is where the Raiders understand we stink. And we're going to trade Davante Adams. We're going to trade Josh Jacobs. We're going to trade Hunter Renfrow. We're going to get whatever assets we can because the rest of this year is just setting it up for next year, right? Jimmy G stinks. He can't stay healthy. He can't make Davante Adams a weapon. He can't do any of this stuff, right? So why are we going to even go through the motions that something else is going to happen other than this? Now, to do it now, I kind of think it's a little bit not doing it 10 o'clock at night, but I kind of think it's a little bit gutsy by the Raiders because they could have stayed down this path and gone to the end of the year and said, all right, well, we couldn't make any trades today. We couldn't make stuff happen, whatever it was. We're going to go and try to – no, we still want to try to make something of this season, and we're going to have new leadership in there in the middle of the year because this is what's going to make it work. And I kind of dig that. Part of it had to be that Josh McDaniels lost the locker room, whether he lost Davante Adams, I'm sure, or some other guys with some of his decisions over the course of the year. But I kind of think that in a weird way, outside of the timing of it, doing it for the Raiders tells me we still believe in this team in this year, and I kind of like that. And I think you're going to see a lot of big changes coming to the team, whether it's Aiden O'Connell starting a quarterback for them, whether it's Davante Adams getting the ball in the first play of every single game to keep him happy. But you're going to see some changes for the Raiders, and you can't say it's going to be bad because it wasn't going great now. So any change is a good one for them.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about who steps up in the interim, but you're looking at over the last 14 days, right? The loss to the Bears, just catastrophic. It put McDaniels in. He was at plus 200 as the favorite for first coach to be fired in the updated odds coming into today. So less than 24 hours after that update, boom! There it is. Off he goes. But you lost to Tyson Bagent. Your team got run over and didn't look like they wanted to be on the field. And then you have a game against the Lions on national television. Now, and we did everything we could to sell, or at least I did, when you're talking about forcing the Lions to settle for field goals, etc. But you still gave up 500 yards of total offense. And you had a wide receiver throwing a tantrum because he can't connect with the quarterback. And you can fight all you want about, one throw or the other, the one out of the end zone, and should he have been able to step into that throw, take the hit, and deliver the ball for what would have been, a 95, 96-yard touchdown, whatever would have been officially. Okay, maybe. The other one would have been a 60-yard touchdown. That's the one that you focus on and go, wow, that's just a wide-open look that you just miss. You just need to lob it up there and let him go run after it. Instead, sails out of bounds. So 2 huge throws. Josh Jacobs has been grossly ineffective. He had like a 4-run stretch yesterday against the Lions. Like, hey, they're actually getting some traction. He found his way into the end zone. Hey, positivity. You haven't had much of that through the first half of the season after you brought him back on a 1-year, $10 million deal. All of it to say, your GM put this squad together. You've got a couple of all-stars, your last year's leading rusher, a guy in Davante Adams that you love. You let Darren Waller go. That's fine. You drafted the kid from Notre Dame. He's been a non-factor. Hunter Renfrow has raised his hand saying, I want in whenever possible. He's been a non-factor. And you just go down the list. It's just a comedy of errors as it goes. But that loss to the Bears, that magnified so many problems that you had, and then last night you just put a giant exclamation point at the end of it. So I hate to say it, Jason, but here we are with same old Raiders.
Yeah, well, going forward, and Adam Schefter just put this out, they're going to name linebacker coach Antonio Pierce their interim head coach.
There you go.
Now you kind of understand why they didn't do anything trade deadline, right? Because you said that thing in the beginning. Hey, how much they couldn't move on from guys. I think if they really wanted to, they would have been able to find people. They would have found people for Davante Adams. They would have found people for Josh Jacobs. They would have found somebody for Hunter Renfrow. You would have been able to do that. You would have been able to find somebody if you really wanted. Maybe you wouldn't get exactly what you'd expect, but would you have gotten a second-round pick for Davante Adams? Probably. Would you have gotten a third-round pick for Josh Jacobs? Though. Probably, right? If you really wanted to, you would have found someone because these are talented guys that don't fit with the Raiders and would fit with other teams. So okay, if you really want to do it. The fact they didn't do anything tells me that this was going to wind up being their move, and they knew it, and they just decided to wait for the news dump to announce it. Like, they probably knew they were going to be doing this hours ago. Like, after last night, what are we going to do? Mark Davis is unhappy. The players are unhappy. We spent a lot of money on these guys. Spent a lot of money on Davante Adams. We paid Josh Jacobs for this year. We paid to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. This is not working. Can we really cut bait on all of them? No. Let's go get a new head coach and a new GM and get a new direction. Right? So that's kind of how I see it going down, because now the Raiders' lack of activity today makes more sense. So I don't think it was a case where they couldn't make a trade. I think they knew this is what they wanted to do, but we're going to wait until the middle of the night on the East Coast to let it go and let people know about it. So that's kind of how I see things, and now the last 24 hours with the Raiders make a little bit more sense.
But you tie your GM's hands to a bunch of albatrosses? Is that the proper... Or is it just albatross? Is that the pluralization?
Albitri.
Sure.
Albitri.
Okay.
Albitri.
Anyway, just the idea of you're going nowhere in a division that is very difficult to navigate, because now you're getting lapped by the Denver Broncos, who are playing some better football of late. Are they great? No, but they're far better off than you've been thus far. And so we look at what the Raiders have and the money invested. We talk about sunk costs, and it's not often that you'd see Al Davis, and certainly not Mark Davis. Look, just 4 weeks ago, he was yelling at fans, "Smarten up!" when they were saying to fire McDaniels. And now you go and you decide that that's your path. I would have thought it would have been a slash and burn to just get rid of all of this so that you get to start fresh the next year with a bunch of assets for the new GM, as opposed to a continued disgruntled wide receiver, etc. But I guess maybe you have a better chance of getting closer to market value for him postseason. Josh Jacobs will be off the books. You still have Garoppolo, but that's only one ill.
You still kind of can. You still can do that in the offseason. But like I said, thinking about it from Mark Davis's perspective, it was, okay, we've had 8 games. We're not 1-7. We're 3-5. Things should be better. I spent a lot of money on these guys. Let's just make sure they can't do it. Right? And that I kind of understand. I understand the whole, hey, we spent money on this team making it the way it was. Now, was it a great plan? No, I don't think the Raiders had a plan. It was, let's get this guy in, let's get this guy in, let's get this guy. They don't have an identity, and trying to make it work like this, I don't see it. But I get the philosophy of, I spent money on these guys, let's just see if they can. Let's see if different leadership, a different kind of system, something else, we can get the maximum out of these guys. Because in the end, Josh Jacobs is still 26, right? He's still young. And if he suddenly goes crazy the rest of the year, hey, guess what? You got a guy that's a Pro Bowl running back who's still well on the right side of 30. Maybe you rediscover Hunter Renfrow, right? Maybe Jacoby Myers gets back to being the guy he was the first 5 or 6 weeks, where he was a great offseason signing. Or you get Davante Adams back to where he is, being one of the most dominant wide receivers in football and not being overthrown by Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe if Garoppolo can't do it, it is Aiden O'Connell.
But is it suddenly the idea that Mick Lombardi, son of former executive Michael Lombardi, former employee of the Patriots, the Jets, and was a defensive assistant under Jim Tom Sula, that suddenly as offensive coordinator he's going to unlock all their potential? That McDaniels was the guy holding back the offense?
Yeah.
Boy, what a smack in the face.
Listen, you're giving Mark Davis way too much credit here.
I was going to say,
he's not that smart.
Mark Davis is just saying, I've spent all this money.
He probably typed this release up in the back of his minivan.
And you know how he doesn't like to eat money, right? He doesn't like to do that.
Well, but that's the thing. The fact that he fired these guys, like, wow.
But that's a drop in the bucket compared to what he's paying the guys on the field. And if you got to make a decision, then you make a decision on, hey, we keep the players and we move on from the guys making the decision, the guys who made the decision to bring the players in. But that's what I'm saying is Mark Davis is, I spent all this money, I want to see if it can work. So before I get rid of it and start moving on, which is what other teams would have done and started planning for next year, I want to see if this can work right now. And it sort of tells me why Aiden O'Connell has not played quarterback up until now, because who knows what the philosophy is. And Mark Davis may be saying, no, I gave Jimmy Garoppolo money. We're going to pay Jimmy Garoppolo we're going to play him when he's there. Right? We're going to continue to play Devonta Adams even if he's pissed and even if he's throwing and slamming his helmet down. We're going to play money. We're going to play these guys making this cash, and I want you to see if it works. That's my desire. And, okay, like I said, I get that part of it. I get that because you can still move on at the end of the season if you want to. I'd have done it middle of the season because you would have had more assets coming in. You would have finished with a worse record. You would have had a higher draft pick for a franchise quarterback. But this way of doing it, no, I mean, I'm not saying they're doing it very altruistically, but I understand exactly what the Raiders are trying to do with this.